Hello. If you've been on Discord for the last couple days, you might have noticed this pop up. It's terms and service stuff, and obviously I'm going to talk about it. Just keep in mind, this video is going to be slightly boring because terms and service stuff is boring, but I'll try to make it as interesting as possible. So, good luck to me in editing. To start off, there's a huge uprising on basically Reddit and Twitter and stuff, people complaining about Discord's new terms of service. Now, I am definitely no law student or anyone who practices law, so just keep this with a grain of salt. This is my interpretation of the terms of service. I'll try to make it as clear as possible. But once again, if you want to dive deep into it, feel free to read the terms and service and stuff. Now, the first guideline I really want to talk about is do not share real media depicting gore, excessive violence, or animal harm, especially with the intentions to harass or shock others. This term in itself, people are taking in terms of taking this specific term and taking it out of context, and I don't blame them for it. Basically, people are complaining that Discord doesn't really define what excessive violence is. We know what gore is and animal harm. Those are pretty straightforward. But in terms of excessive violence, people are starting to get a little bit worried in terms of sharing media, especially with the tensions that are going on with Ukraine and Russia. Does that depict excessive violence? What is violence? What is determined as excessive violence? There's a lot of gray area here, and when you have gray area in guidelines and terms of service, it does give the company, the issuing company, Discord, a little bit more leverage. Maybe a photo of some sort of war memorabilia. Is that considered excess violence? Is a broken building considered excess violence because it got bombed, but we're just looking at the remains of the building and nothing bad, no blood anywhere? There's a lot of interpretation to this, and I feel like some people are quite pessimistic about it. They believe, oh, well, if there's a photo of a tank, tanks are violent, and therefore Discord's going to ban my account for that. In reality, Discord's a massive company and they probably won't ban you for things like that. This is probably just set in place for people who upload extremely gory and excessively violent videos. So we're talking live streams of shootings and other stuff like that. That's what Discord's trying to capture, and I feel like stuff like, photo memorabilia of like tanks or like war history photos aren't really going to be taken off of Discord because of this. I feel like they're not doing this to try and make it so that you can't talk about war. Now, the second point of contention for free speech is this kind of be honest category, and the main point that it's trying to say is that do not share false or misleading information. Now, I honestly feel like this is very much blown out of proportion in terms of the backlash about it. For most normal individuals, I feel like making a joke like this one here, I made this one, and I love using this one, basically trying to convince people to say that they're underaged if they are. While the photo itself is a complete lie, I feel like Discord really won't be too worried about that in terms of, this isn't actually honest, this is a lie. And that's because the whole kind of point of that lie isn't to actually harm someone. Obviously, in this current day and age, a lie that would harm someone would be anti-vax groups. They don't get vaccinated, they don't have protection, whatever opinion you have on that. Obviously, I'm not going to force you into an opinion, but the point is that misinformation can be harmful. And I feel like for most normal people who don't have, a very strong counter opinion to the norm, are going to be fine. So if you're just little Timmy on Discord playing with your friends, you won't really care about this. But if you are participating in maybe an anti-vax discussion group, maybe you don't approve of the views of anti-vax, but you still want to participate in the discussion, you might have some sort of repercussions on your account. AKA, you could get banned or something if you did share some anti-vax information. And in all honesty, it's definitely bad having your chat kind of being monitored for that. But at the same time, you are using Discord, you are using a publicly available application, and you don't technically have free speech on a platform. We've seen this with Twitter and stuff. They can just delete your tweet. So once again, I feel like people don't understand that if you're going to talk about something that is inherently harmful, like anti-vax stuff, then of course companies are going to try and remove you from the platform because you don't want to be the platform labeled as, these guys made it so that the anti-vax people could talk and communicate and cause this huge issue or whatever. So this is Discord covering their ass, but it is nothing to super, it depends on the person you are. If you're just a normal person, this isn't really going to affect you. But if you are just some sort of niche fringe group, then it might affect you. Now, moving on from free speech, because it is kind of a boring topic if you don't care about it, or it's quite interesting if you do care about it. Let's move on to some termination of your account. Discord has updated their termination guidelines, and basically the main sticking point that everyone, including myself, is quite kind of disappointed about is that Discord now has the quote-unquote right, well, they always have the right to terminate your account, but they're now making it clear that if you have not used your account for more than 2 years, they are going to delete your account. This is quite bad because, to be honest, some people have multiple accounts and they might just forget to log into one. For example, I have a couple alt accounts for Better Discord and stuff, and let's say I go on a huge 2-year hiatus and I try to come back and everything is gone. That'd kind of be disappointing. And I know some people have school accounts and maybe older Discord accounts, and it's always nice to kind of go back and have a little bit of a nostalgia trip going through all your messages and remembering yourself of all the good times you had. But unfortunately, Discord is starting to delete their accounts that are inactive for 2 years. And finally, the last thing, which definitely is probably the most stupid addition, I would say, in terms of the terms of service, is this export control thing. Now, I'm just going to read it, then I'll kind of summarize it, and you can kind of figure out what's going on. So you agree to comply with all applicable import, export, and re-export control laws and restrictions, including but not limited to those of the European Union and its member states, the U.S. Department of Commerce Export Administration regulations, and economic sanctions maintained by the U.S. Office of Foreign Assets Control, and the International Traffic in Arms regulations, and will not use the services to cause a violation of such laws or regulations. Further, you represent, and this is the important part, further, you represent and warrant that you are not located in North Korea, located in a country or region subject to U.S. or EU government embargo or designated by any country's government as a terrorist-supporting country. This includes Cuba, Iran, Syria, and the Crimea region. And 3, on any government list of prohibited or restricted parties or otherwise subject to equivalent restrictions as specified in the laws and regulations listed above or in your country's laws. Basically, they're making it so that if you live in a country that is labeled as terrorist supporting, you have no right to use Discord. While Discord can do that, they can do whatever the heck they want. They aren't legally obligated to allow it to be open for every single person on the planet. I think it's quite restrictive and quite xenophobic because not everyone in Cuba, Iran, Syria, and Crimea region are terrorists. Not every single person in a specific country has the same mindset. If you look in the United States, for example, there's two very distinct parties. There's the left and the right. You have people who are more pro-vaccine, people who are anti-vaccine. There's always going to be some sort of, opposition. And there's going to be people in the middle who just straight up don't care. It's not just always black and white, and it's not always, if you live in this one country, you're that. There's a wide array of opinions and people in a specific country, and I feel like what Discord's doing here is basically being quite racist. All right, so that's basically the rest of the terms of service changes that are of note. Just as a quick little summary, there's 3 main points that come out of this new terms of service change. The first one is free speech, kind of has been changed a little bit. Obviously, you never have free speech on any platform, but Discord's just made it so that they have a bit of ambiguous terms that give them a wider span of control. They can consider your content as excessively violent when it's just war memorabilia. There is a concern about it. I personally think that most people will not experience a disruption in the content they can post on Discord. I think it's just Discord kind of overreaching their terms of service. The second point is that Discord can now delete your account if it's been inactive for 2 years. Pretty plain and simple. And the last thing is that if you live in Cuba, Iran, Syria, or the Crimea region, Discord will now block your access to the service because they think you are a terrorist. There's a bit more discussion there, and that's kind of it. It's not a very beautiful video. Obviously, I'm just reading terms of service. It's not the best, but at least it's presented out there because I know some people just hate reading the terms and service. Like, I hate reading it, but I have to read it a lot because I do stuff that's very close to breaking it or does break the terms of service. Anyways, I'm rambling at this point. I love you, sweetheart.